the true human aspects of these things, a lot of what we talked about previously was sort of abstract in its impact, right? The direct impacts of climate change are felt relatively acutely, and they're not necessarily equally distributed across all of society. That's not the case relative to indoor air quality. That's not the case relative to indoor environmental quality. Those are acute, those are local, and those are sort of micro level issues. So when I look at the IQ section of the rating system, I want to always talk about the fact that we've inserted this into the dialogue deliberately to encourage project teams to think about the way that the buildings that they build treat people. So we've tried to move towards a much more systems-based approach that looks at ventilation, lighting, acoustics, and how all of those things come together to determine the occupant experience within a project. We're looking at much more performance-based and health-based outcomes across the board. And through all of these credits, there is just a direct tie to both occupant satisfaction and health. Yes, sir?
One of those issues is a difference in looking at whether that's provided by equipment and controls or whether that's provided by occupant interaction.
Right.
The lighting controls was always an example of that, where you had to have automatic controls. You could not have occupant controls for lighting.
Right.
Is there any tendency in the indoor air quality to actually look at intelligent occupants, especially with smart dashboards, as an approach so that one doesn't have to always look at putting in more expensive controls?
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and I think I would answer it. I'll try to answer it by saying that we are, as an industry, right, kind of reliant on design parameters as proxies for good indoor air, right? So we look at ASHRAE 62, and we say that if a building complies with ASHRAE 62, it's going to have good air quality, which is a fallacy, right? It really is just that, you cannot say that just because you design something to operate a certain way, that it's going to operate that way, right? So one of the things that we're moving towards with this version of the rating system is performance-based indoor air quality testing, right? So you actually go through and you take samples and you look at particulate counts. You look at total VOCs, you look at formaldehyde, ozone, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and you, instead of using the design as the proxy for good air and for quality, you look at you actually characterize the indoor air. And one of the things that's exciting is that we're seeing technologies, all the wearables, we're seeing technologies that are focused on those types of parameters, and stitching that into the fabric of a building management system is something that I don't think is more than a couple of years away. So whether or not it becomes an active occupant or inhabitant experience, or whether or not the inhabitants are just the generators of the type of information that is necessary to make good decisions, I don't have a crystal ball that far in, but I definitely think that the reality is that we're going to be moving much more towards that integrated inhabitant-based engagement. The same thing can be said with energy, because you can design a building that is wonderfully efficient, but if somebody comes along and puts a wall where they shouldn't, or covers up a thermostat with a bookcase, right? Buildings work great until people come in and screw them up, in theory at least, right? So I think the same thing can be said with energy as well, from an occupant and inhabitant perspective as well. Which is actually an interesting segue into the last thing that I'm going to talk about, which is integrated process. Our industry still, buildings industry still operates in a relatively siloed way. We have highly specialized individuals that execute projects. And I know somebody who is a lighting designer for neonatal intensive care units, right? That's what they do, and that is an extraordinarily specialized position. I'm not saying that it's not important at all, right? From personal experience, it's extremely important. But it is so siloed, it is so specific, that decision maker oftentimes will be optimizing their one piece of the building in a way that is complicating life for everybody else. So understanding that and understanding the benefits that come with a really truly integrative process, we've created a new credit that specifically rewards the activities that generate the benefits associated with making sure that the lighting designer talks to the HVAC designer, that the architect talks to the civil engineer, that the interior furnishings people, the people who are picking paint colors, talk to the lighting designer, because all of those things are interrelated, all of them matter. If they painted this room black, completely black walls, you'd have to to get the same level of illuminance on this floor, on this writing surface, you'd have to up the lighting, lighting power density in this room, right? So decisions that are made in sort of in isolation tend to complicate other decisions. And so we've got a credit for integrated process in this version of Racing, which is really great. I'm over time, according to my